for them gangsters all across the world. Still hitting them corners and them lolos, girl.
And he always says no in the beginning. No. Okay.
You can always look for a great fight at a pub out here. You don't even have to say nothing.
A tall, thin man with a leisurely gait, a voice as smooth as smoke, and a charisma that makes the whole world nod. That is Snoop Dogg, the living icon of hip-hop, whose name everyone knows just by hearing it. You're not just a rapper. He is an American cultural icon, the soul of the West Coast, and a shadow too large for any artist to dare follow. But behind those energetic appearances in front of the camera lies a dark truth that few understand. Just a few years after his peak, Snoop fell straight into a storm of chaos that shook Hollywood. Loved ones turned away, one by one. The 3 a.m. calls bring bad news, and the psychological burdens that no doctor can prescribe for. The man who once made the whole world laugh and dance to every rap line is now struggling against the terrible loneliness within his own life. So what made America's meme king the center of a series of tragedies? Are you ready to touch Snoop Dogg's darkest secrets? 1. From the shadows of Long Beach to the world's pinnacle. Snoop Dogg's full name is Calvin Cortazar Broadus Jr., born in 1971 in Long Beach, right when California's murder rate peaked, a world where opportunities are scarce and violence is commonplace. Calvin was the second of 3 brothers growing up in a home completely lacking a father figure. His father left when he was less than 3 months old to join the army in the Vietnam War and then disappeared from his life forever. The stepfather appeared as a small glimmer of hope, but it led nowhere after a fierce argument. In a world where everything can turn its back, Calvin only has his mother and music to lean on. That boy carries within him 2 lives that are not at all alike. A church Calvin sang in the choir, played the piano, sold candy, and delivered newspapers to help his mother. And a Calvin from the boys' 6th grade class, who could rap as if it were DNA in his blood. His mother called him Snoopy, because of his long face, quiet demeanor, and mischievous personality, just like the cartoon dog. A seemingly harmless nickname that would become the name that changed the history of hip-hop. But stepping out of the church, the world was no longer pure. Long Beach back then was gang territory, where every block was controlled by someone. In a place where every street corner can be a battlefield, children are not allowed to be innocent. And Calvin, despite his love for music, still had to learn another language, the language of survival. That's the only way not to become a victim. The more outstanding the musical talent, the more legal troubles followed. Broadus became a member of the Rollin' 20 Crips, one of the most notorious Crips gangs in the East Side neighborhood. Not long after graduating, he was arrested for drug possession and sentenced to 6 months in prison. In the next 3 years, he was in and out of jail repeatedly for various offenses. At times, he was even imprisoned due to his involvement in the death of a member of a rival gang. That was a period when so many young people lost their future just because of one wrong choice. At that time, getting involved with gangs could cost you both your life and your chance to take the stage. And yet Snoop still stood strong, a rare feat in Long Beach during those years. It was in prison that music became the ultimate lifeline. Snoop rapped for his fellow inmates just to pass the time, but those who had broken the law were still sharp enough to see what he himself hadn't. "You don't belong here. You have to go outside. You can't die here." Those words became an obsession for him for many years to come. In the early 1990s, the first opportunity emerged in the way hip-hop often creates legends, starting with rejection. Snoop and his close friend Warren G were ignored by record labels. Demo tapes sent out disappeared. Both had almost gotten used to the feeling of being shut out right in front of them. Until a party. Warren G asked to play the demo tape for the noisy crowd, and someone started nodding along to each lazy but cunning word. That person is Dr. Dre. He listened, and he saw the future. "This is the good stuff," Dre said. And the funniest part is when Dr. Dre called Snoop to invite him to the studio. Snoop thought someone was trolling him and hung up. It wasn't until the second call that he believed it was really Dre. The moment Snoop walked into the studio to record Deep Cover in 1992, history changed. After that recording, he became an irreplaceable piece of The Chronic. As soon as his voice is heard, the music immediately changes color. Then Doggy Style arrived. A cultural earthquake, nearly 1 million copies. In its first week, the fastest-selling debut album to reach #1 on Billboard at the time, and quadruple platinum in just 1 year. A child who once ran from the police in Long Beach now stands on top of the world, where the lights shine down like magic. The peak of fame began to bring many fears to people. After 1996, when he was officially acquitted in a suspected murder case, his name became widely known in the gang world. However, he realized he wanted to pursue a genuine musical path, not become a crime boss. That's why he decided to step away from the underworld and step onto the world stage. Entering the 2000s, Snoop continuously reinvented himself. From a gangster rapper, he became a model father, then a tech entrepreneur, then a pop culture comedian, then Martha Stewart's friend on television, the lovable uncle figure who made the whole country laugh. But even legends are not immune to the cruelty of life. In 2024, tragedy struck him twice in a row. 2. A past I don't dare mention. 2024 is like life testing. How many more times a broken heart can be before it stops beating? Outsiders still call Snoop Dogg the coolest man alive, the man who nothing can faze. But that year, he didn't just collapse. He shattered in a way that no television show or entertainment article had ever mentioned. The stroke that hit Corey came on a seemingly harmless morning. A call, a few rings, then silence. To others, it's just a bell. For Snoop, it was like a gunshot going off right next to his ear. Corey, 24, suffered a severe stroke. The daughter he once carried on his shoulders, held when she was scared, and who used to call him Pops, in a sweet voice, now lies motionless in the emergency room. Lupus plagued her throughout her childhood, joint pain, purple patches of skin mornings, when she couldn't get out of bed. But a stroke is something no one can prepare for. He didn't cry at the hospital. He just squeezed her hand, holding it tightly, as if his warmth could pull her back. Snoop was seen wearing sunglasses, a hoodie, and standing as still as a statue. But sunglasses aren't for style. It's to hide the dry red eyes from sleepless nights. In the days that followed, he didn't return to his bedroom. He went into Corey's room and closed the door. The whole family thought he just wanted peace and quiet. But Snoop stayed in there, didn't turn on the lights, didn't eat, didn't talk. His wife had to call a psychologist to intervene when he started saying things that made the whole family shudder. If the girl doesn't make it, I want to go with her. The man who had survived gangs' violence and a murder trial was now choked up like a child. Some nights people could hear him sobbing from his room, crying so hard it sounded like he had no breath left. He collapsed to the floor, clutching Corey's photos and repeating over and over, "I wish I could take the disease for him." Facing a lifetime of guns is easier than facing the unmoving gaze of his daughter. And before he could even stand up before his daughter's heart, still relied on machines to maintain its rhythm, the second blow came. Just a few weeks later, Bing Worthington, his brother and most trusted confidant who had weathered every storm with him for 3 decades, died suddenly. No warning, no signs, just one call. Bing is gone. Sometimes a sentence with just 2 words is enough to break a person. To the public, Bing was just a collaborator, a behind-the-scenes person. But for Snoop, it's the rest of his youth. Witness to every mistake, every time he escaped death in gang life, every secret Snoop never spoke on stage. Bing is the only person he doesn't need to pretend in front of. No need to bring the Snoop Dogg persona, no need for swagger, no need to be cool. When Bing passed away, Snoop not only lost his brother, you lost the only person who knew all the dark corners you hid your whole life. The world sees an Instagram post, a few lines of thanks, a black and white photo. But they didn't see the empty kitchen where Bing used to make coffee every morning. I don't see the sofa still smelling of his cologne. No messages were ever answered. The screen only showed the word "delivered," like a cruel joke of fate. For 30 years, Snoop has been familiar with death, but it's been the death of friends, colleagues, people he loved but didn't live with. Tupac was shot. Nate Dogg is gone. DMX did not survive. He has carried too much grief in his heart. But there's still a distance. Not this time. This time it went straight through the chest. This time it touched the 2 people he was sure he would protect until the end of his life. 2 names that made his whole world collapse in a few weeks. People think celebrities have a team to worry about. But in reality, fame only keeps the pain from being revealed. Snoop still has to sign the contract, still have to show up, still have to pretend to be okay. Because hundreds of people earn their living from his image. Because the Snoop Dogg brand cannot collapse just because Calvin is hurting. So on the outside, he smiled on talk shows, joked with Jimmy Kimmel, took pictures with fans, and went to events with Martha Stewart. But inside, he felt like his whole body was slowly emptying. He walked onto the stage under the bright lights, but every night he returned to a dark room, opened his phone, looked at Bing and Corey's names in his contacts, and then quietly turned it off. In the car, there were nights. He drove aimlessly around Los Angeles with no purpose, no music, and no one knowing where he was. Rappers from the same era used to say they had never seen Snoop so quiet. It was a silence not born of composure, but of not knowing what else to say. Two tragedies struck in quick succession, hitting the two fears he had hidden all his life: the fear of losing his child and the fear of losing his biological family. Those are two weaknesses that gang life didn't touch, fame couldn't cure, and money couldn't save. That pain didn't kill him, but it awakened his entire past, which he had tried to bury for years. A fatherless childhood, the violence of Long Beach nights when he believed anyone he loved would eventually leave him. The scariest thing wasn't loss, but the past returning with just 2 phone calls. 3. The past resurfaces. 2024 not only brought 2 unexpected blows, but it also pulled Calvin back to the place he feared most, his childhood home of Long Beach. It's not Long Beach on the map, but Long Beach is in his head, where old scars that had been dormant for decades suddenly resurfaced like wild beasts awakened. Outsiders only see a Snoop Dogg grieving over his daughter's stroke and his brother's death. But for Calvin, that series of tragedies was like a perfect replica of his childhood, losing his father, losing loved ones, losing a sense of security. The 2024 fall wasn't just the fall of the year, but the fall of a lifetime. Most fans believe Snoop has been ironed out, a person who once lived among iron bullets, drugs, and courts, and even survived a murder case. What else could bring him down? But life has a cruel way. It always hits you, right where you're weakest. And Calvin's weakest point has never been fame or money. That's family. And in 2024, it took away what neither the mafia nor the courts could the man he loved. The rhythm of that year's loss was like a cruel copy-paste of his childhood pattern. When he was just a 3-month-old boy, Calvin was abandoned by his father. Not a single letter, not a single explanation, not even a single look back. That disappearance became the first cut, a distorted definition of family that Calvin carried throughout his life. Then growing up on the streets of Long Beach, where the homicide rate in the late 1980s was among the highest in California, Calvin learned to live with bad news. You were shot yesterday. An acquaintance was arrested the day before a neighbor was taken away this morning. Damage in Long Beach never comes alone. It came in pairs and chains, like gunshots firing in rhythm. So when 2024 arrived, his brain didn't react like that of a 54-year-old man, but rather like that of a 17-year-old child, sitting in a dilapidated house on the east side, hearing the news that another person had passed away. That feeling, having the people you love taken away by life, came back whole, not faded in the slightest. People often say, time heals. But with Calvin-style scars, time just puts a Band-Aid on it. When it's triggered, it will explode. There's a truth Snoop rarely speaks, but those close to him all know. For many years, he's carried the fear that anyone I love will leave. That's not a constant worry for celebrities. That's PTSD inherited from childhood. In 2024, when his daughter nearly died, and his brother truly passed away, that primal fear resurfaced like an old shadow he thought he had left behind long ago. The irony is that all of America only sees Snoop, the hip-hop legend, the fun uncle of pop culture, the living meme. But in the moment his family collapsed, no one saw Calvin, the multi-traumatized man from Long Beach who had spent his life struggling with feelings of abandonment, step forward. What hurts him isn't just the event, but the memories that come with it. Seeing his daughter lying motionless brought back memories of his mother crying when his father left. Hearing the news of his brother's death made him remember each of his friends from the past who were shot without getting a chance to say their last words. The current pain just kept adding to the old pain, like an iron chain around his chest. Some fans asked, Snoop has been fighting for so many years. Why does this make him collapse so easily? The answer is very simple. Because with gangs and guns, he knows how to survive. But with the illness and death of his loved ones, he was completely helpless. There are no traffic laws that can help you save your daughter from lupus. No freestyle verse can bring my brother back to life. No charisma can hide the feeling that he has once again lost the person he loves. Calvin had learned to stand firm against gangs in court and in the media. But before the hospital, before a phone call delivering news of death, all of Snoop Dogg's layers immediately fell away. This is the psychological domino effect that the public never sees. What you overcame in the past didn't make you immune to pain. It just made you accustomed to a different kind of pain. The pain of the streets of gunfire, of living fast and dying young. But pain because of family. That's where he doesn't have armor. That's where Calvin is most naked. And when the string of losses in 2024 hit, it was as if it brought all childhood memories to the surface. The feeling of everything important slipping through my fingers, a feeling he had hidden for 30 years, suddenly resurfaced as vividly as the first day. A longtime fan once said, Snoop never really forgot Long Beach. He just learned to live with it. And 2024 is the year Long Beach comes back to collect. For many people, childhood is just a memory. For Calvin, childhood is a locked room. He left, but the room never left him. And when the daughter collapsed, the brother left, and the room opened wide. No lights, no way out. Only the feeling of losing a loved one, a feeling he thought he had escaped. But trauma has its own memory. It knows when to come back. That's why the audience felt Snoop was unusually quiet. No more familiar jokes, no more fun live streams, no more of the Uncle Snoop energy that all of America loves. Because at that moment, the person standing before them wasn't Snoop. That's Calvin, the man reliving what he spent half his life trying to forget. And that's just the surface. Beneath it is a larger battle. The battle between legendary Snoop Dogg and Calvin, the broken man. 4. Mythical personality. There's a paradox that every Snoop Dogg fan has felt, but few dare to put into words. The more famous, the more cool, the more he becomes a cultural icon, the less he's allowed to show pain. Snoop Dogg, a name that America considers the default laugh of hip-hop, has long ceased to be an ordinary person. He is a brand, a cultural asset, the hip-hop uncle, who can make the whole studio burst into laughter with just a faux shizzle. And that's why all his true emotions, especially sadness, had to be hidden, like something that wasn't allowed to be shown in public. Sponsors need a version of Snoop who is always happy, always comfortable, as if he's drifting through life on a thick cloud of smoke without stress or harm. Television shows need a witty, quick-thinking Snoop who can deliver a line that makes the audience laugh every time. Advertising contracts need a permanently chill Snoop, the man who, even with the world burning behind him, still appears with a half smile and a deep voice, as if everything will be all right in the end. The market doesn't allow you to be sad, and it certainly doesn't allow you to collapse. Because if he shows signs of exhaustion just once, the contract will be jeopardized, the campaign will be postponed, and the brand will question, can Snoop still maintain his vibe? That's why even if his life hits rock bottom, the audience still finds it difficult to notice. He might have just left his daughter's hospital room, his eyes still red from lack of sleep, but on set, he was forced to wear dark glasses, hiding everything behind that mask. He could have just received news of his brother's death, but the next day, he still had to film commercials and maintain the signature smile that Hollywood had come to use as an icon. It's not because I want to pretend, but because the system requires you to be like that. Fame is not just about the spotlight. It's a contract. It's an expectation. It's the money of an entire team poured onto one person's shoulders. And when he's in pain, it's not just him who collapses. The entire machine of dozens of people behind him could also be at risk of collapsing. That's why the public never sees Snoop Dogg break down. It's not because he's stronger than others, but because you hide it better. Snoop wears sunglasses not for style, but because it's the easiest way to hide his eyes, which are always at risk of turning red due to lack of sleep anxiety, or because he's just finished crying. He smiled half-heartedly, as if life had never hurt him, because the moment he stopped smiling, the whole world would immediately ask, "What's wrong with Snoop?" He delivered his familiar joke in every show, not just because it was his style, but because it was the only thing that helped him maintain the boundary between Snoop, the legend in front of the camera, and Calvin, the man trying not to fall apart. The truth is, the title "Coolest Man Alive" sounds like a compliment, but for him, it's a sweet curse. Because the cooler someone is, the more people assume they must be okay. The more people believe you don't know how to be sad. The more people forget that Calvin, the boy from Long Beach, is still there, still carries the emotional scars of his gang-ridden youth, and still bears the worries of a father-brother and breadwinner. The cooler a person is, the harder it is for them to be understood. Coolness made him an icon, but it also robbed him of the right to be vulnerable. And then, 2024 arrived. 2 successive losses struck him like unexpected punches. His daughter was on the brink of life and death, and his brother passed away suddenly. Those events not only caused him pain, but also made the mask called Snoop Dogg feel suffocatingly heavy. People ask why you still smile on the darkest days. Because if he doesn't laugh, he'll collapse. And if you fall, the whole world will see. It was a subtle tragedy that only those who had followed him for 3 decades understood. Snoop Dogg, the man whom the entire United States had placed on a pedestal of chill, was never allowed to be sad like a normal human being. You are the laughter of others, but your own pain cannot be seen by anyone. But it was from that precarious cliff that a surprise occurred. Because when you're standing on the precipice between complete collapse and having to continue hiding your pain, you only have 2 choices: give up or change. And Snoop, even at 54 years old, even after a tumultuous life, still chose the second option. 5. Journey of transformation. While people are used to seeing Snoop Dogg as a jovial icon, a cultural symbol who can warm up any room with just a joke, the truth is that this very image has locked him into an unremovable mask. When America calls you Uncle Hip Hop and the coolest man alive, they don't realize that these seemingly flattering titles also make you someone who is not allowed to falter, tremble, or even sigh. Because behind that light-as-air smile isn't just Snoop Dogg, a national treasure and the face of dozens of advertising contracts, but also Calvin, the man struggling to keep his family from falling apart. In Hollywood, Snoop Dogg is an asset, while Calvin's grief, weariness, and fear are a luxury. In recent years, he still leaned back comfortably in talk shows, still cracked jokes that made the audience laugh, but no one saw his hands clenching under the table, as if trying to hold on to the last vestiges of calm. You see a tall man in black glasses smiling and turning the camera, but that's only half the story. The rest were moments of him sitting in his hotel room at 3 a.m., with a packed filming schedule and contracts waiting to be signed, but his heart stuck in the hospital, where his daughter was fighting for every breath. Many people think he's chill because he wants to be. No, he's chilling because the contract requires it, because the sponsor needs that image, because a sad Snoop Dogg could ruin an entire marketing campaign. That's the downside of the legend. The cooler you are, the less right you have to be weak. The title, Coolest Man Alive, it sounds impressive, but to him it felt like a curse. Because when you're seen as immortal, no one believes you can feel pain. When you're always the source of joy for others, no one thinks to ask if you're okay. And when the whole of America was used to the image of Snoop Dogg dropping a joke that made the whole studio laugh, who would accept seeing Calvin, the man trembling from losing his brother, exhausted from his daughter's exhaustion, lost between laughter and sobs, he was trying to swallow? Perhaps the cruelest thing for an artist isn't the blinding light, but the fact that they must live in that light, even when their heart just wants to dim for a moment to ease the fatigue. But it was the series of events, from the 1996 trial to the punches of 2024, that forced him to choose the most difficult thing: change. And Snoop changed in ways no one expected. He no longer glorifies death like in the doggy-style years. He talks about life, about forgiveness, about how to keep families from drifting apart in the storm. After 1996, he began to change direction, but it wasn't until he faced the risk of losing his child and his sibling that the promise he made years ago truly became a real determination. Calvin, not Snoop, was the one who decided he wouldn't let violence, hatred, or fame take away the rest of them. Many people used to think his reggae or gospel work was just a visual gimmick. But when you look deep enough, you see it's therapy. It's how a survivor finds their way to self-healing. Amidst flights, shoots, and crowded stages, Calvin found peace not in the spotlight, but in slow melodies, in the trembling rhythm of a church organ, in prayers he had never spoken aloud. If rap is what helped him survive in Long Beach, then faith is what helped him get through his 50s, without completely collapsing. Pain, strangely enough, taught him something fame never did, that life is too short to hold grudges. In recent years, he's lost too much to have time to hate anyone anymore. Every time he sees off a loved one, he reminds himself, I don't have as much time as I thought. From then on, he reconciled with those he had been at odds with, fought less, argued less, and let his ego drive the wheel of his life less. Those things that outsiders think are mature are actually a form of self-protection. The person who suffers the most is often the kindest. That's also why Snoop transitioned from the role of survivor to that of guide. He appeared in his junior studio not to show off, but to warn the fame trap is real. He told them about exploitative contracts, about quick money, but even quicker risks, about friends who change when you become famous, and about the price no one talks about when the spotlight shines on your face. Those words of advice didn't come from books, but from tears. Not the words of a legendary rapper, but of a man who has experienced almost every possible loss in life. And that was the crucial turning point from a gang runaway. Calvin became the guide for an entire new generation, helping them avoid the pitfalls that almost killed him. From someone once considered a threat to America, he became someone parents invited to speak to their children about discipline, family, and kindness. An arc that only those who have hit rock bottom can understand. Amidst all those layers of pain, responsibility, and expectation, the truth is that Snoop Dogg, at 54 years old, no longer cares about Grammys charts or records. He's interested in something else, whether what he does makes anyone's life less miserable. And the fact that someone who once lived in darkness can bring light to others, that is the true legacy. Because in the end, it was that very change, that very transformation that helped him move forward. And it is also what creates a legacy greater than any golden trophy Hollywood has ever awarded. 6. Legacy of pain. After more than 3 decades in the spotlight, people are accustomed to the image of an immortal, laid-back Snoop Dogg, with a half-smile turning every moment into a cultural icon. But behind the million-view crip walks and jokes that made America laugh was a layer of memories never mentioned by the press. A broken childhood, old wounds that lingered until the age of 54. The strange thing is, those very pains, the things that once defined his survival, have now become the foundation for a legacy that no other rapper of his time has achieved. Since 2005, Snoop has done something no one expected, and no one fully understood, pouring money, time, and his heart into the Snoop Youth Football League. A project that started modestly with just a few hundred inner-city children. 20 years later, over 60,000 young people avoided the cycle of gangs thanks to a football jersey and a man who persistently stood behind them. For Snoop, this isn't a flashy charity movement. This is how he repays his childhood debt, by fixing the years he was pushed into the streets without a choice. No flash, no talk shows, no flashy hashtags. There was only one quiet promise. I used to get lost, you guys don't. Then there's Special Stars, a program for children with disabilities. It was born from very personal pain. Corey, the daughter who had lived with lupus since childhood, went through depression medication, and days so exhausting she couldn't get out of bed. Snoop understands what it's like to be afraid when you see your child getting weaker, bit by bit. It was that feeling of helplessness that led him to create a playground for children, whom society often considers too weak to integrate into life. He couldn't completely heal his daughter's pain, but he could create a world where children like her wouldn't be left out. Ironically, the very person once considered a criminal icon of the 90s has become a national treasure at the 2024 Paris Olympics. From a safe house out of fear of assassination to carrying the Olympic torch before millions, this wasn't a rapper's comeback, but the journey of a survivor. He crip walked through Paris, flashing a gentle smile that melted both athletes and spectators. No longer an outsider to culture, he became the bridge, the laughter, the breath of America. At 54, Snoop is slower and more mellow. His voice was warm and gentle, as if he had just weathered too many cold winds. But within that slowness is a peace that only those who have touched the depths of sorrow can know an understanding of life. He no longer runs from the past, nor does he display it. He only uses it to love more, forgive more, and pave the way for the new generation to walk more safely than he did. Tragedy hurt him, but it didn't break him. It just makes you choose kindness over hatred. And perhaps for that very reason, Snoop Dogg's tragedy is not only heartbreaking, it's beautiful in a very human way. Someone who has suffered a lot but chooses to live more kindly. Someone who has lost much but still gets up to protect other children. That's why Snoop's story doesn't end with sadness. It was a quiet victory for a man who never allowed darkness to define him.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast.
There is still so much more to explore. Stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.